Hello, how are you? I hope everyone is gesund, stark, und freilich, begashmis verbrüchnis. Hope everyone is healthy, strong, and happy physically and spiritually. Today is Erev Pesach, so we'll try to be a bit brief. It's Erev Shabbos Hagodol Pashas Tzav. Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov. This week was Yud Aleph Nissen, the Rebbe's 119th birthday, going into Shnas Mei V'Esrim. Today is Yud Gimel Nissen, the Yom Elul of the Tzemach Tzedek. Both the Rebbe and the Tzemach Tzedek have the same name, so there's a special connection. So, obviously, today we'll speak a message for the festival, for the Yom Tov Pesach, and the connections to the Parsha and the lesson. But first, we'll start with the Rebbe's new kapitel, Kapitel Kuf Chof. Today, by the way, I want to talk about two very fundamental ideas in Judaism. Yiddishkeit and Chassidus, gratitude, and the idea of facing adversity and challenges, and how we overcome them. So we'll start with the Kapitel Kuf Chof, the first pasuk, Shir HaMailos, a song of ascents. Shir HaMailos El Hashem Batzarosali, Korosi Vayaneni. In my distress, I call to Hashem, and He answers me. The Rebbe once spoke about this kapitel, and he said a tremendous thing, that we're dealing with a person who sees a problem, tzorosali, it's trouble, it's hardships, it's challenging. And he says, Korosi Vayaneni, he calls out to Hashem, and he's sure that Hashem answers. But how does the kapitel start? Shir. He's singing a song. How could you sing a song when you're looking at a situation in front of your eyes and you see that it's batzarosa? The answer is because you see the purpose of the tzarasa. And the Rebbe once spoke about it, and he connected it with a tremendous Torah of the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov said, there's a time of trouble for Yaakov, but from that itself comes the salvation. And the Baal Shem Tov said, we transform the tzara, which means a problem, a distress, into tzoyar, which means a window and light. Why? Because you see that the real purpose of the tzara is the tzoyar, which comes afterwards. Here we come to one of the most fundamental principles in all of Torah's HaChasidus. Yerida tzorech aliyah. The whole point of any descent is in order to come to the ascent, to come higher. And therefore, even deeper, the Yerida is a chelik from the aliyah. Since the only way to come to an aliyah right now is through this Yerida, that means that the Yerida is not really a Yerida. It's part of the ascent. So when you are going through the tzarasa, if you're able to see that it's really tzoyhar, it's really only to make you a better person, then what can you do? You sing. And your simcha and your betachan actually help transform that tzara into tzoyhar. Amazing. And the Rebbe, in many places, connects it to what it says in the Medrash, that Yaakov Avinu was in Lavan's house for 20 years, and during those 20 years, he said these 15 Shir HaMailos. Now think of it. Yaakov is the one who had to bring up his kids in hostile environment. Not like Avraham, not like Yitzchak. He's living in his uncle's house, who's a gangster, a con man, who's looking to cheat him every single second, and who does crimes. And he wants to bring up his children to be Hasidish, to be good Jews. How was he able to survive all those years in Lavan's house? And by the way, this is a connection between Kapitel Kuf Chof and the Agada, because what do we say in the Agada? Tzei ilmad ma bikesh Lavan arami lasis liYaakov Avinu. You should look at it. Tzei ilmad. Study it. Think about how Lavan was an adversary to Yaakov. And the Agada says, however you're going to explain it, the Lavan bikesh laker es hakol. Lavan attempted to uproot everything. In a way, he was like the worst enemy. So the question is, how was Yaakov able to survive? And this is an answer to the general question in life. One of the greatest questions that every single one of us asks from time to time. How can I be more successful? How can I overcome challenges? And the answer is simcha. Be an optimist. That's one of the rules of success. And we learn it over here by Yaakov Avinu. That what's his approach? His approach being in the house of Lavan, in a terrible, terrible environment. What's his response? Shir. And the Rebbe once spoke about it. He says, what sort of shir? A marsh. The song of a soldier marching to victory. So Yaakov Avinu is in the darkness, but he doesn't see darkness. He sees the light. And he's sure of the light. And he's sure, since he understands that the purpose of his whole living in Lavan's house for all these years is only to make him a better person. So that's what happens. Because he sees the purpose of the descent, and therefore he lives his life in such a way accordingly to make that the reality. That's Kapitel Kuf Chav. The connection to the Parsha is that in this week's Parsha, we have also part of the Shlomim is a Korban Toida. What's a Korban Toida? When you give a sacrifice for Thanksgiving. And Rashi brings down over here the case where a person lived through a danger, a disease, a sickness, a trip. He was captured. So he gives a thanks to Hashem. So it's a thanksgiving. Chassidus brings down that the Rosh Tevis v'chol ha'chayim choyle yerdei hayam. I forgot what the rest of the Rosh Tevis is right now. Midbar, Yisurim, I'm not sure. But the word chayim represents these four things. So Chassidus says, v'chol ha'chayim yiducha selah. That those people that experience these things come to a higher level of chayim. You know, when you've been through the test, and you survive, then you really thrive. Because you did the Tzedek Aliyah. So it didn't make you weaker, it made you stronger. Better than ever before. That's the whole point of experiencing whatever difficulties there are. There's only one response to every situation. And that is Yerida Tzedek Aliyah. It was only there in order to make it better. And this is the connection to Pesach. Pesach, as we know, is the time, as brought down in Tanakh. The Pasuk says, Leidas Am Yisrael, it's the birth of the Jewish nation. So when we think about the birth of the Jewish nation, the main emphasis is that we're a Jewish nation. What does it mean to be a Jew? And what do we say at the climax of the Aggadah? What is the climax of Magid? We come to a bracha, but right before that bracha we say, Lefichach anachnu chayovim lehoidos lahalal l'shabeach. So we're saying that the whole point of Magid, which is from the word Haggadah, which in a certain sense is one of the climatic points of the whole Seder, is to come to this point, Lefichach anachnu chayovim lehoidos, to give gratitude to Hashem, that He redeemed us, that He made miracles, etc. And that we're a Jewish nation. And what does it mean that we're a Jewish nation? To tap into my Jewishness and to reveal my Jewishness. It's interesting that the bracha that we make for Hagoimel, I realized we say the bracha Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam. Today we can't bring this Korban Todah. So in those circumstances where a person would have brought a Korban Todah, today he makes the blessing of Hagoimel, which is a blessing for the deliverance of danger, a thanksgiving. And the blessing is that we say Hagoimel Chayovim Tov Shegmalani Tov. We thank Hashem, who bestows goodness upon the guilty because of humility. You always have to see yourself, as far as yourself is concerned, that you could be better. And when you make that blessing, the congregation answers you, Mi shegmolcha tov, hu yigmolcha kol tov selah. He who bestowed goodness upon you, bestow every good thing upon you forever. I once heard a good word from a Hasidic Jew. He says, when you say thank you to Hashem, Hashem gives you more opportunities to say thank you. This is the source. Look at this. You say thank you to Hashem. Hagoimel chayovim tevis. Shegmalani toiv. And what's the response? Mi shegmalcha toiv yigmalcha kol tov selo. That the Eibusha should continue doing you kindness. And then what? Then you give him thanks for that kindness. So that's the way it is. The gift that never ends is say thank you, Hashem. If you say thank you, Hashem, the Eibishter will give you many, many more opportunities to say thank you and continuing saying thank you. And this is another point, a very interesting, tremendous point about the Korban Todah. The Medrash says that when Mashiach comes, the Korban Todah from a Korban Yachid is the only Korban that's going to continue. There won't be any more Korban Chatas. A Korban Chatas is connected to sin. A Korban Todah, thank you Hashem, could be something which is only positive. In other words, Shir Hamaylos. We're singing because we're ascending. We're constantly ascending. So therefore, there is one level of thank you which is connected to something negative. There was a danger. Whew, thank God, that's over. That's one level we say thank you. But there's a higher, deeper level of thank you. That we're constantly ascending. Shir, Hamaylos, Aliyas and Ketz. When Mashiach comes, there's going to be Shir Hamaylos. Only song which is connected to as how we're going higher and higher, deeper and deeper, getting more and more intimate and close with Hashem. So the Eibishter should help Takeh, that we should come now to the time where we don't have any Yeridis. There's no more sense of Yeridah, Tzerech Aliyah, but it should be Shir HaMaylos, direct, just song connected to positivity, Yelchem Mechael Choil, in Avedis Hashem, and in levels of godliness. We said that the name of the two tzaddikim that is connected to today is Menachem Mendel. That was the Tzemach Tzedek's name. And the name means, and that was the name, now let's say the name of the Rebbe, but I said the Tzemach Tzedek's name. The name means a comforter, a consoler. This was their whole purpose of a true Rebbe, of a true leader, to bring comfort and consoling 24/7. That was their life was all about. I'm going to read you something that the Frierdiker Rebbe says he heard from his father, who heard from the Rebbe Marash, who was the Tzemach Tzedek's son. So the Tzemach Tzedek was the third Lubavitcher Rebbe. His son told his son, the Rebbe Marash told the Rebbe Rashab, who was the grandson of the Tzemach Tzedek, the following: As Oviv Krei Kedushas Harav HaKadosh Tzemach Tzedek, Be'eser Zafilu Givenen die Hechstes Mannen, when he was at times of the greatest spiritual heights. Und in die tiefsten Yonim, in the most deepest, profound concepts and levels. Saying Chassidus, whether in Chassidic thought or levels in serving Hashem, saying Tshuvas, or whether we're talking about answering responsa, they're very deep analytical questions, and the Tzemach Tzedek answered questions from around the world, halachic questions. L'hoshav l'shoylev b'inyanei halacha, where he responded to those that asked him questions in things of matters of halacha. Fleckte sich abstellen und trachten, wie zu Tornaiden mit Ha'olam Ateva. The Tzemach Tzedek, in his deepest, highest, the deepest of the deep, the highest of the high moments, wherever he was, whatever he was doing, would take a pause to think how we could do a favor for a Jew at the other end of the world. How unbelievably inspiring is that? This is what a Rebbe who we have no understanding of what his level of davening and learning is all about. And he would take a pause to think how he could help another Jew, to do a favor. What does that tell us about ourselves? How we have to stop whatever we're doing at times and think how we can help another Jew. A story of the Rebbe connected to everything we're speaking about is there was a certain person, his name was Nachum Stillerman. He says stories about how he used to deliver food to the Rebbe's mother, Rebbe Tzechana. As he got older, he was already a teenager and he got more serious, and he still used to deliver food there from time to time. He once asked the Rebbe's mother, what is the Rebbe's favorite prayer? And he says because he was getting more serious, he was going off to college, he wanted to have one section of prayer where he'll really, really concentrate and put all of his efforts. So he asked the Rebbe's mother, what is the Rebbe's favorite prayer? And the Rebbe's mother said, it's true, all prayer is important, but there might be one that's more important than the rest. So I'll have to ask my son, I'll have to ask the Rebbe. So the next time this Nochem Stillman came to the Rebbe's mother's house to deliver food, the Rebbe's mother told him, I have an answer for you. I asked my son, what's his favorite prayer? And my son answered, Moide Ani. Moide Ani lefornecha melechai v'kayim, shechzarte binishmosi b'chemla, Rabbi Munasecha. Now this is profound. You know, somebody could look at Moide Ani and say, what's Moide Ani already? The Shema, the Shmei Nesra, which that is traditionally seen as the high point of prayer. But no, the Rebbe said his favorite prayer is Moide Ani. As we all know, the Rebbe wrote a whole kuntris and spoke many times about Moide Ani. It's one of his greatest contributions in Torah scholarship, this dissertation that he wrote on Moide Ani. But what the Rebbe explains about Moide Ani is that it's essence to essence, the spark, the essence of the Jew crying out and giving thanks to Hashem. That's what Moide Ani is. And the Chiddush of the Rebbe, similar to what I spoke before, what you mentioned before about Pesach, is that the Rebbe's emphasis in Moide Ani is not just Moide Ani lefanecha melechai v'kayim, shechzarta binishmosi, thank God that I'm alive. No. The Rebbe stresses that we're meant to think Moide Ani lefanecha melechai v'kayim, shechzarta binishmosi, that the Eibishter returned my neshama. What is my neshama? The neshama of a Yid. As soon as you get up in the morning, you're meant to think, Ashreinu matei chalkeinu, I'm a Jew. And what does it mean to be a Yid? Etc. So these are the thoughts that we have to have today and what we learn from everything we spoke about. Number one, the answer to all challenges is to see that it was meant to make you stronger, to make you better. When you live your life in such a way that you're optimistic and you see the good that's in everything, then you will be able to overcome it. That's number one. Shir, sing, be happy. Then hamailis, then you will ascend, you will go from level to level. That's a guarantee. And you know that karasi vayaneni, when I call out to the Eibishter, he always answers and helps out. We're going to transform the tzara into tzoyar. And remember Pesach, Leidas Am Yisrael. We're supposed to think that it's the birth of the Jewish nation. What does it mean to be a Jewish nation? What does it mean to be a Yid? And that's the same idea of Moide Ani lefanecha melechai v'kayim shechzarte binishmosi. The Eibusher should help that with this new beginning of the new year of the Rebbe's Kapitel Kuf Chaf, we should all be able to sing. We should have no situations of tzara. It should only be toiva nireva nigla. And the singing should only be connected to something positive. The toiva nireva nigla. I want to wish you a kosher and freilich and Pesach, and the schus of the Yud Alef Nissen, the Baal Yemei Ledes, and Yud Gimel Nissen, the Baal Yemei Lula, the Tzemach Tzedek, should be Peil Yeshua's B'kerev Haaretz, that we should see now, Ki Meitzeis Chameret Mitzrayim, Aren Flois, Begula Mitzvah Shleima, take it from Yad Mamish. Posting from my home, Be'ez Hashem Yisbarach, your man in Melbourne.